Coming from Central Kentucky, land of horses, bourbon, and basketball, straight to your ears, ChickenCoopGuides.com presents AgriCast Digest, your place to get news and information about anything agriculturally related. Please welcome your host, Gabrielle Yoder.
Welcome to the very first AgriCast Digest. I'd like to say thank you to those who are giving this a shot for the very first time, as well as those podcasting pros who listen to podcasts on a regular basis. Whoever you are, thanks for listening. I'll take a moment here to outline the schedule we have for the next several programs, which will air as often as listeners express the desire to have us record them. And if you have any comments, concerns, suggestions, or questions, please make sure to go to the podcast main page and fill out the form there to tell us all about it. We create content 100% to please our listeners, so your voice is always important. On this session, we're going to be purely introductions and Q&A. We've got a lot of questions that came in, so it'll probably branch into a segment next week as well. Our current goal is to publish 2 to 4 podcasts a month filled with information that's valuable to you, the enthusiast. So if you want to talk about chicken poop, tell us. Although I'll tell you that we've already got a segment about chicken manure and soil amendments coming down the pipeline. Now, if you want to hear about rabbits, sheep, horses, gardening, natural health, or whatever, we've already received questions about these things, so keep them sending along. We'll talk about that stuff too. Now, if you want to talk about the latest celebrities and what part of their butt they had vacuumed recently, you're out of luck. Probably going to be one of the only things we won't be talking about here. But if Brad Pitt takes up alpaca farming anytime soon, you can bet that I'll be on it. Now, I will warn folks ahead of time, we're not politically correct here at AgriCast Digest. I like to think back mentally to about 25 years ago when people weren't so worried about getting offended and suing each other. If you get really twisted up about something we say, then write to me, but be nice. I'll be fair with anyone who's fair with me, and I respect all points of view when people present them rationally and respectfully. At a point in the future, we'd like to also do live podcasts, but we need to test interest first. One day, I hope to be able to take your questions live on the air. And I've probably spent enough time yammering about that, so let me introduce myself. My name's Gabrielle Yoder, and I'm a chicken fanatic. My husband and I are raising 4 kids in beautiful central Kentucky. We're originally from Florida, and we never really wanted to live anywhere else but here. The people are really awesome. The local food and farm movement is huge, and the scenery is like something out of a picture book. Florida had its pretty spots, but it was really overdeveloped. And it was covered in concrete and palm trees, fake or otherwise. And Kentucky tends to keep a lot more green areas, and we really like that, at least in the bluegrass area where we live. If you go into one of the bigger cities like Louisville, you're going to have a lot more concrete, obviously. Now, there's not too much snow usually, and it's still officially the South. Just about right. Even, they do put noodles in their chili here. What else about me? I'm a mom to 4 kids. I'm an herbalist. I'm a local food enthusiast. I went to culinary school briefly, which really only made me more of a food snob. And we also homeschool, so I'm frequently crazy, and I'm a big nerd. I love books and I love learning, which is one of the things that I think made me the right person to do this, because I have a lot of interest. And that's something really great, folks, is that even if you didn't relate to any of the things I just said, just the fact that you came here to listen about chickens or general agricultural topics tells me that we are going to get along just fine. And speaking of those topics, I have an entire bag of questions here from people like you who've contacted us recently. So let's knock a few of those out, shall we? I've got one here from Teresa. Teresa's concerned because a hen who recently molted is laying again, but her feathers aren't growing back. Well, molting can take a really long time, Teresa. A hard molt can be months, even up to 4 or 5 months if they lost everything. If they're laying eggs again, then that's a really good sign. If you want your chicken's feathers to come back faster and you want a healthier hen overall, though, the protein content of the chicken feed needs to go up. If you're feeding them commercial, then this is probably pretty simple. Just buy a bag of the higher protein stuff and feed her some for about a month. Or even easier, you can just mix some supplementals like peas or other high protein foods into the daily mix. And, you can just hand feed her a little bit too, just maybe to that hen. That's also an option. Now, do watch out for chicken feather eating friends of hers. Those little pin feathers look mighty tasty to her fellow inmates there. So you might want to keep an eye on that as well. Next question is from Tony. She had a hen who sat on a clutch of 12 eggs, but walked away after a couple of them hatched and left the rest to die. Ugh. She wants to know how long until her hen lays again. First, I want to say I'm really sorry about that, Tony. I know it can be really hard to watch potential life being snuffed out, and farm life isn't for the faint of heart, for sure. Unfortunately, I have to say that all hens are different. They do seem to know instinctively when there's something wrong, so my best guess is that the other eggs probably had something wrong with them too. Again, I'm only guessing. Now, the hen could have just been a real bird brain and not up to sitting anymore. With chickens, there's a lot of guesswork involved, so that's me guessing for you. Now, the next time this happens, there's a couple of things you can do to prevent that problem. You can candle the eggs. That can help you kind of determine the duds from the live eggs. And this can make breakage and chick diseases less likely too, like mushy chick. And if the hen hops up from the eggs when one or two hatch, and you're absolutely sure that the rest are still alive, have an incubator standing by to pop them into. And it might work. Or you can grab another broody hen and kind of sneak them under her to hatch them. Give them a couple of days to kind of candle them again to check on their progress. And as long as you're right and that there are live chicks inside, then they'll hatch in time. Just don't help them, please. You have to let them do that on their own. As for when that particular hen will lay again, it's probably going to be about 2 or 3 weeks before broodies start producing after they've hatched a clutch. Last question on the introductory broadcast comes from Maureen. Now, Maureen recently contacted us about vent gleat, and she wants to know what the causes are and what you can do to help the problem. She also let us know that this problem had been going on for a couple of years, and she hadn't had time to take care of it beyond the apple cider vinegar she gave to them. So I'll be getting into 2 things here. The first one is, I understand that chicken raising is hard. There's a million other things that might take priority in your mind. But I'd like to ask everyone now to take a look at things from the perspective of your chicken. You are 90% of the time continuing to domesticate an animal. This isn't a bad thing. I'm not PETA. But humans need animals. But what we also need to do is we need to take care of them. Stewardship of those who depend on us is a big deal. Just like our children rely on us to feed and clothe them and make sure that they're well, it's the same for our animals. So the fact that these chickens had what's basically a really bad yeast infection for a couple of years bothers me. And I think Maureen really did her best with what she had to work with and the knowledge that she had. So I'm not jumping on her. But around the same time I read this, I also read about several cases of animal neglect. So I'm mentioning it together. I've seen farms where horses' hooves have rotted off and the animal had to be shot. Dogs left to starve and die on a chain. Chickens crammed into cages together until their feet curled up. This is the kind of thing that hypocritical organization, PETA, uses to bilk people out of their hard-earned money. And if you live in a rural area or you have lived in a rural area, then you've probably seen it at least once. My point in all of this is that it's so easy to stop thinking of the animals in our care as being beings deserving of respect. And they just kind of become another commodity. You shoot a buck and you eat it, and it deserves a quick, clean death, and it deserves for you to use every part of that animal and not make any of it go to waste. And that old rooster that you called to toss into the soup pot deserves to have lived a full life that was healthy, even if for no other reason than for you to be self-serving. I mean, if you think about it, do you really want to eat a diseased rooster? Is it really healthy to eat eggs from a chicken that's suffering from vent gleat? And I'll leave you to think about that and come to your own conclusions. In the meantime, let's really talk about vent gleat. It's pretty nasty. And as I said earlier, it's essentially a yeast infection, which means that there's a lack of balance in the chicken's life. And this can come from many things. It could be stress from barking dogs. That's a real common one. Or our kids at one time went chasing the hens, and it made all of them really nervous for a while. It could be that. Excessively starchy foods like corn or soy with too little access to fresh greens and herbs and bugs. Lack of clean water, or just generally in bad health. Sometimes they've got internal parasites you don't know about, or external parasites you can't see as well. So I'm like, if they're suffering from another problem like scaly leg mite or something like that, which you know about and you're treating, it can still also cause that additional other health problems like Fencleat. So you want to keep an eye on that. Also, check that the food you give them doesn't have added yeast. Many commercial brands that brag about the probiotics and whatever else they stick in there also add brewer's yeast or nutritional yeast. And adding this to an already yeasty chicken is a really bad idea. Generally, if the chicken is healthy, that's fine. But if the chicken is in poor health or it's imbalanced in any way, it's already having problems with yeast, you don't want to do that. Now, Maureen had the idea she had for the raw apple cider vinegar was really good start. It's really good to help things along. And our advice to Maureen was to really assess their diet, their living conditions, their lifestyle. Everything should be clean and tidy, plenty of clean water, access to greens. If they don't pasture or they run on grass, I would start, or if they don't pasture or run on grass, I'd start this as soon as possible and keep it going to prevent that from happening again. It's often necessary to move a run around since chickens scratch up the grass a lot. And if that's not possible to move the run, then you need to provide maybe flats of sprouts. You can just rotate the flats around and offer the sprouts at least twice a week. You don't even have to change the soil. You can just kind of loosen it up and put more seeds down and sprout it again. And you can just have several going at once that are like, staggered out, plant some, wait 2 days, plant some more, wait 2 days, plant some more. And you've got, some staggered sprout flats that are there ready for the chickens to eat. Cut down on the soy, corn, and treats. A lot of people give too many treats to their chickens just because it's really funny to sit there and watch them scratch it for things. Like you throw a handful of whatever and they go crazy and it's funny. And a lot of people keep doing it, or they'll have their friends will come over and they'll do it. You kind of have to be careful and put a cap on that. So kind of cut down on the treats a little bit. Try putting some probiotics in their food. That'll help their gut rebalance. And a little unsweetened yogurt will also help with that. Molasses is a prebiotic, which is like a probiotic food. It's like what feeds that good gut bacteria. So put a little bit of molasses water out once a day and just kind of offer it for a couple hours so they can drink it before replacing it with fresh water. It's also a good idea to catch and bathe the affected hens, obviously. I'd even suggest getting some geranium essential oil and kind of adding a few drops to the spray bottle of water. And so after you bathe them, you kind of spray their vents down a couple of times with this geranium oil water. And you make sure to shake the bottle first, obviously, so the oil gets in there. But shake the bottle, kind of give them 5 or 6 good sprays on the vent. And then once you spray them down, kind of towel, let them dry off a little bit. You spray them down like once or twice a day afterwards, and it should help cut down on any fungus or yeast that's still clinging on there. And if you're not really sure where to get this, sometimes a health food store like Whole Foods or just a regular old health food store might have it. Buying clubs, if you're part of one, they frequently sell essential oils at discount prices. If you're not sure about the quality, because a lot of them are diluted and adulterated, then you could check out Mountain Rose Herbs. That's a really good one. That's the one I've always used since I became an herbalist. They've got the best quality on the net that I know of. And I'll make sure that there's an info link for this on the podcast episode page. Now, geranium oil is one of the best antifungal, anti-yeast, and antibacterial agents I've ever found. I make a powder from equal parts arrowroot powder and white kaolin clay, and then I add some geranium oil before shaking it up in a bag and kind of smushing it with my fingers to work the oil drops in. About like 20 drops does it. And then you can put that in a shaker, and it's really great for human and animal needs. It's the best baby powder on the planet. My kids' diaper rashes have disappeared in literally hours. We've dusted chicken butts with it too. It works really good. I'll post the recipe on the episode page as well. But for now, we really have to say goodbye. I know this didn't seem like a very long one, but there was a lot of intro stuff. So next time, we're going to probably have a lot more questions to answer. And we plan to have a lot more content in the future about a variety of things. We're looking to try to get an animal aromatherapist on, animal chiropractors. Also some human stuff too. So there's going to be a lot of variety on here. We're hoping that everybody will really enjoy this. But make sure you get those questions into us, and it can be about anything agricultural related or human health related. And if you go to the podcast main page, ChickenCoopGuides.com/podcast, then you'll see a brief web form where you can submit your questions and comments for future episodes. And while you're there, please fill out the poll that we have up to tell us what your preferred publishing day, frequency, and even program length is. Now, on the podcast page, you'll also have access to a load of other goodies like the private AgriCast Digest Facebook page. We've got archives, transcripts, eventually, because this is the first episode, but there'll eventually be more archives. But with every episode, we're going to have transcripts. And whatever freebies and trial offers we dig up, I'll also put them there too. And if I mention an info link during the broadcast, don't worry about writing it down because it'll be there under the episode page every time. You don't even have to take notes because we're transcripting every broadcast. Again, I wanted to tell everyone thanks for listening and God bless.
You've been listening to AgriCast Digest. If you like what you just heard, please share with your friends. And don't forget to go to ChickenCoopGuides.com/podcast to download transcripts and archives of this episode, as well as take advantage of any freebies or trials offered in this episode. You can then visit our private podcast Facebook page, also linked there. This has been a Bluebird Media production.